pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone.
Let me mute.
This is recognition. This is to advise those present at this meeting of the Board of Education of Pinelands Regional High School District in the County of Ocean that adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. The notice has been posted to the Board of Education office, junior high school, and high school buildings. The notice was also mailed to the Atlantic City Press and filed with the Municipal Clerk of Bass River Township, Eagleswood Township, Little Lake Harbor Township, and the Borough of Tuckerton. Report of the election results. The annual election of the Pinelands Regional Board of Education was held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. Mrs. Palladino and Mr. Bartlett and Ms. Handedale were elected to serve on the board. Moving forward to the oath, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Dallio. Mr. Bartlett, if you don't mind, would you repeat after me? I, please state your name.
I, Raymond Bartlett,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and the governments established in the United States
and the governments established in the United States
and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God.
and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I, please repeat your name,
I, Raymond Bartlett,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
am not disqualified as a voter
am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to RS 19-4-1,
pursuant to RS 19-4-1,
am not disqualified due to a conviction of a crime
am not disqualified due to a conviction of a crime
or offense listed in NJSA 18A 12-1,
or due to a conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A 12-1,
and that I faithfully, impartially, and justly
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you and welcome to the Board of Education, Mr. Black.
Thank you.
Welcome to the board, Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a roll call, please.
Mrs. McVeigh. Mr. Dallio.
Here.
Mr. Rossetti.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Chambers.
Here.
Ms. Paklakua.
Here, remote.
Ms. Palladino.
Here.
Ms. Hannadel. And Mr. Bartlett.
Here.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Before we get started, I just wanted to give the board's condolences to the two students that were involved with the tragic car accident that happened. I believe it was Saturday. Our hearts and prayers go out to the families and to both girls, and we hope for a speedy recovery. Report of the superintendent.
We need the approval of the agenda.
Oh, no, we got that. Oh, sorry. Okay, I passed that. Yeah, please have a recommend motion to approve the February 2nd agenda. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second, Karen.
Are there any questions?
All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. That motion carries.
Thank you. Now report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Dallio. I only have a couple of things, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brown, who has an update as well. First, February 4th, our students in both the junior high and high school return to hybrid learning. That means that if they were scheduled to come 2 days a week, they will return to that 2 days a week schedule. We are coming off of our quarantine time period. A reopening plan schedule was sent out to families. It is tentative and based on COVID numbers and staffing availability at the time allocated on that schedule. If you have any questions about that, as a few parents did, please reach out to me and I'm more than happy to answer them. And then the only other thing I have is I just want to thank the board members for all of your condolences. It's greatly appreciated, the emails, text messages, and cards that you sent. And I appreciate it. And Mr. Brown.
Okay, thank you, Dr. McCooley. I just wanted to give the board an update on two things. One, just kind of a brief overview of where we stand with our feasibility study and the LEAP grant. So as you may recall, the LEAP application was submitted and approved early in
You want to go meet?
2020. We did an RFP back in October of 2020, and we identified Porzio, Bergman to the steering committee identified them to perform the study. They submitted us a request for information for some data that they're going to use to perform this analysis. We've responded with a pretty voluminous submission to them, so they now have what they need for the first round of analysis. I think the next step for us is that we're going to schedule some stakeholder meetings with the community to review the goals of the study and the progress of the study, and we'll look to get those scheduled in the spring, and they'll be open to members of the community to provide feedback and input on that process. I also wanted to give everybody a quick legislative update. We were on a call last week with Mark Magar, who's a legislative aide for Senator Sweeney, and we discussed our early experience so far with the LEAP grant. Their office is working on legislation and financial incentives to support districts who are exploring regionalization. And he asked for us to provide some suggestions for that legislation as it's in the early stages. And so I just wanted to share the feedback that we shared with the senator's legislative aid. And we first talked about the application and the grant management and coordinating with the Department of Community Affairs. We also talked about funding. Right now, the grant's reimbursable, but we suggested that that should be awarded like other revenue from state sources. So if it's a $90,000 grant, they would give us a check for $90,000 and then some framework or some guidance on how that needs to be spent. And then we would report on a regular basis on the spending. We talked about the importance of organized labor. I know we've talked about this in some of our committee meetings in the past, but these are really important jobs to the economic health of Southern Ocean County. And so it was a focus of our Board of Education and all the other boards of education in the area that we talked about a multi-year attrition plan that would be supported by the state with funding, and that we would try to avoid reductions in force, recognizing the importance of our organized labor force to our local economy. We talked about the importance of local rule. It's my opinion that it should not be an all in or all out. After reviewing the final study, the voters in each district should decide whether or not they want to pursue regionalization as a group. And so we suggested that there's some language like that. We included something like that in our RFP as well. And in the implementation side, we offered some suggestions. We've had a little bit of experience with this, dealing with the Bass River staff come into Little Lake Harbor as part of that send receive agreement. And so it's a little bit of nuance, but there's some coordination with the Division of Health Benefits and the Division of Pensions and the district's business office. So we offered some of our suggestions on that coordination as well. So all in all, I was really encouraged that we were asked for input on what could be a really important legislative step. And I just wanted to share with the board the information that we provided to the senator's office.
So may I ask, it's Kim, were there other people on the call as well? Or is it like an individual call with Mark? Oh, that's great. So was the idea for you, was it your idea, the attrition idea?
No, that came, I think that came through all of our discussions with the entire committee of people that's offered input for regionalization from the beginning. If you remember, I think we started meeting originally in December or maybe November of last year and brought members from each Board of Education from the regionals and the elementary levels into the discussion. And that was feedback from the entire group. So as much as I'd like to take credit for it, I just agree with it. I think those jobs are are really important. If you look down here, and this was identified in the Bass River feasibility study prior to that send receive agreement, this area is geographically not close to the work centers in Philadelphia and New York. So we don't have the strong labor market here. So the jobs here tend to be in different areas outside of the traditional labor markets. And so I'm of the opinion that they're really important to the economic health of each of our communities.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing, Nick. I really do. Really appreciate you giving the update.
No problem.
First of all, I just want to thank everybody, for their participation with tonight's meeting. I really do appreciate you coming and being part of this. I just want to go on real quick. I have a quick statement to make, and then I'm going to open it up to the board. And the agenda really does focus on board relations, and the purpose of the meeting is to address any board members' concerns with the board, their fellow peers, and administration. It is my hope that all board members' expectations are being met. And if they are not being met, and there are concerns or perceived problems, they should be discussed in an open, transparent manner, like a board meeting. It is my belief that you cannot repair what is broken in the back room. If the board would discuss concerns privately, there would rise a concern of a quorum of the board, and that it could violate our board bylaws. These discussions need to take place in the public for the public's trust in their elected officials. I watched what goes on the Senate floor and the House of Representatives. That is called democracy, whether you discuss your differences in a professional manner or passionately. That is true transparency, in my opinion. Shared services of the superintendent. There's been much discussion of that lately. It keeps on coming up. So I would like to let you know how it came to be. In 2018, the Pinelands and Little Lake Harbor School Board, Dr. McCooley was confirmed June 2018, and her first year for the school year was 2018-2019. At that time, Pinelands was in the middle of a referendum project. The superintendent completed the referendum project, and she did it ahead of schedule. In 2019-20, the first year the school was open, we got hit with a global pandemic that shut the schools down again. Dr. McCooley created a strategic pandemic plan for virtual learning for the 2020-21, or for the virtual learning, and then also in 2021, a plan for hybrid learning. Formed a parent reopening committee comprised of over 60 members from sending districts. With all that our district has gone through since she was appointed, and that the superintendent has only had 6 months of what we would consider a normal school year. With all that, it is my belief Dr. McCooley has excelled under these difficult circumstances. And I want to let you know how the shared service came to be. A little background again, is my experience with this process was with then President Sue Ernst. I have to mention all the hard work Mrs. Ernst put in, along with Mrs. Chambers, who was the vice president at the time. We have our differences, as I've noted back in September with my written statement. However, I have to give credit and respect where respect and credit is due. She worked very hard in this endeavor to make it a reality. The board at that time gave 100% support moving forward with the shared service between both schools. The board at the time I'm sorry, I'm repeating that. This is why I'm still baffled at why so much negativity and pushback. At the time, they wanted a superintendent that would clean things up in Pinelands and get the school moving in the right direction. Progress was mentioned many times during the school year of 2018-2019. I still do not know what changed. Maybe someone can answer that for me one day. And I also have to mention that at that time that the shared service was approved, 2 board members did have concerns or questions with the shared service agreement. At that time, I wouldn't describe them as huge supporters of it. However, they are some of the superintendent's biggest supporters now. Thank you for your support too. I've heard some concerns from the public in regards to the salary of the superintendent. I observed that at some board meetings, members made statements in the public questioning the salary too, as far as stipends and what's being paid. I put together a list of prior superintendents that were board approved here in Pinelands going back to 2010. I also have the contract of Little Lake Harbor superintendent, elementary superintendent, in his last year before he resigned. All of these superintendents were paid the same, or were paid the same or more than Dr. McCooley, and only were responsible for running one district. So I do have a list. I just wanted, it's public knowledge. It's posted in the school. You can easily find them. And I went back to first of, which was the superintendent of Little Lake Harbor. His last year was 2012, 2013. Mind you, every year he get raised increments. His last year he was paid 177,000 and change. That doesn't include other perks that were probably in the contract. He also received those. So that's in 2012, 2013. Only responsible for one district. I moved on.
Sorry,
I pulled.
did you say 177?
177. We move on to another one. What I pulled off records was Dr. Detlef Kern from 2004 to 2010. His ending salary was 167,000 and change, and 562 to be the exact number. His per diem was 698. Now that again was just for one district, and that was from 2004 to 2010. Mr. Blake, superintendent, 2011 to 2017. He had raise increases every year, and his final raise before he was departed was $157,500. During that time when Mr. Blake or Dr. Blake left, we had an interim superintendent come in, Dr. Banks. Her salary for the year per diem was $179,000. Again, this is just to work one district, not two districts, not two boards, not two budgets. Then she had to leave for health reasons, and Dr. Cheryl Stevenson, the acting superintendent, she took over, and her per diem, and what she was based on, 174,000 per for 2017 and 18. Dr. McCooley, who was appointed in 2018, the district share for that is $94,000 for Pinelands, and it's split. The whole is split with Little Lake Harbor School Board. So it's $94,000 that the Pinelands High School District is paying for. And that's for running two districts. So I really wanted to make a point. I'm pointing that out because I've heard a lot of fodder on social media about some people what they're worth and who's supposed to get what. And I think it speaks for itself. These are boards that approve these contracts. They're ratified, agreed upon by the superintendent's attorney and with the board at that time. I think it's deserving. I have no issues with that. You know, these people set themselves up for these careers, and they earn it.
I'm sorry, Augie, could I interrupt?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Karen. I did serve on the board when we were hiring Dr. McCooley. I think it's important to note that the board at the time did not intend to look for a shared superintendent to save money. We wanted to hire really the best superintendent to bring this district forward. We listed criteria, what we were looking for. I will tell you, we looked at over 100 resumes, and we narrowed it down from there of who to interview. And it just so happened that the board unanimously felt that Dr. McCooley was the best candidate out of all of those resumes, and that because of that, we pursued and weighed the pros and cons of having a shared superintendent. So we did not go into this thinking we needed to save money. We went into this with what is the best thing for the Pinelands community, whether it's and the benefits that come besides this, the money is, continuity of instruction and, is more improved transition. So there was other benefits besides the money, but our goal at the time when we hired a superintendent was not to save money. It was to hire the right person to move us forward.
No, I agree with that part, and I definitely, because I think you do got a high quality superintendent.
Yeah, exactly.
But at that time, what I'm saying is, I'm hearing, and I've seen it, as far as her salary being questioned. That's why I'm bringing it. I'm not saying specifically you, but I appreciate that. That's a lot of information. I do appreciate that.
And you just mentioned, Mr. Dalio, that Pinelands Regional School District, our input into Dr. McCooley's salary is $94,000, correct? That's our responsibility, not just Pinelands. Okay, just getting clarity on that.
No, that's it. All right, the last part before, again, asking the board for their input, I would like to, I have no concerns with the superintendent. I think she's doing a very good job. I support the superintendent. So I've heard a lot of things and some negative. I'm a firm believer in that respect and trust is never implied. It's cliche, but it really is. You earn that. And I've had years of experience of watching Dr. McCooley and what she's done in the schools, and she's earned my respect and she's earned my trust. So I feel it's her job to run the school district like it is any superintendent. That's their responsibility. The issues and concerns I have is that, and this goes back again, I watched what goes on here at Pinelands in 2010 as a parent. I've noticed something very peculiar over the years, and that it seems that after a reorg, the district gets a new superintendent. Over the years, I've listened to some staff members' complaints. I've watched fractured board after fractured board in one superintendent one day, then out with the superintendent the next day. I've watched concerns with an old BA and old department supervisors. I would desperately like to see this change and focus on student achievement and improvement in academics. I do have concerns with what has been happening currently. Leaking private information out to certain members of the public. We've had recently just had something like that happen again. And to me, it speaks of there's no other way something that would be coming from public if it didn't come from the board. So I do have concerns with that. I believe it's a very serious breach of confidentiality for staff members, students, administration, and the board. We all take an oath as elected officials, and some adhere to that oath, while others either forget them or just they don't care about it. From what I observed, in my opinion, is micromanaging administration, micromanaging the administration, looking over the shoulder of the superintendent, wanting to be part writing curriculum. I've watched a lot of that going on in my first year here. I don't think anyone would like to work in that environment where you have people over your shoulder constantly. I know I would not want to be working in that type of climate. We as the board hire the superintendent to run the school district. That is what she is paid to do. It is not the board's place to administer policy. The responsibility of a board member is to implement, is to work alongside with his or her fellow board members, creating policies that will benefit all students that go to Pinelands. With that said, I would like to open it up to the board, and I would like to find out, whatever you're not getting, whatever your expectations are that are not being met, whatever concerns you're having with the board, the administration, whether it be agenda items, whatever you have that you would like to have addressed or your expectations to be met, I would like to hear them now. So I would like to start with Mr. Rossetti. Is there anything you'd like to share with the board?
I haven't been here as long as everybody else. Looks like from what you were saying, issues going back to 2010, so I can't really comment on that. As from a board perspective, I think that some of the information that we can get a little bit more in advance. Sometimes, people have different work schedules. It seems like we get our agendas late on Friday, and it only offers so much time to look over things.
Okay.
And, I think that if our board meetings are a month out, we could probably get, at least a fluid agenda a little bit sooner.
Mr. Rossetti, can I clarify that?
Sure.
How would you feel if it came out earlier, but still changes were being made?
Well, that's fine. I mean, because we know a month in advance. Like if there's some big topic, we know that it's going to be on the agenda. So some minor things may change over the coming weeks. It's fine. It's in the era of transparency. We know what's coming out. We have time to ask our questions, seek information, do what we want. Other than that, I mean.
Okay. Nothing else you would look at? You can. I mean, I'm not. You could always come back if something.
I don't know specifically what you're asking for. So I mean,
I'm
just off the top of my head, like if there was something that I think that could make this board function a little bit better, would just be the information just out there.
Okay, that's good.
Just out there a little quicker, a little bit more time to digest it, look at it, do whatever.
Okay, the only reason why I said that is that if any time you feel something pops in your head, you can always just jump right back in again.
Right off the top of my head right now, without knowing where we're going, that's the first thing I thought of. So
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Rossetti.
no problem.
Mrs. Chambers, do you have anything you'd like to say? got you.
Okay. All right. Seeing that this meeting was on board relations and how we can better move forward as a group in its entirety, I had a couple bullet headings that I thought maybe would be worthwhile for discussion. The first one is Board of the Whole. We currently function as a Board of the Whole. It's what we voted to do. But what I don't see happening is discussion as a Board of the Whole. I feel there needs to be more discussion during our workshop sessions regarding different topics, different issues, things that are going on within the district. Waiting until maybe after the second motion is not the time to do that. And I don't think we as board members should be told that that's when we raise these questions. I think that there needs to be more open transparency with the public during this board discussion, during a workshop session. And that's what the Board of the Whole is all about. I really think the public needs to see us discuss these various issues. And I don't think they're getting that at this point. I think that's maybe the perception I'm getting from them is that they don't see our business being conducted. They come on the live stream and it's just the vote on the different items. We might have board forum and then we're closing the meeting. So I don't see a whole lot of workshop discussion going on. It's just something that I feel that maybe we could do a little bit better on, especially for transparency with the public. As going along with transparency, I would like to see maybe in the future, possibly getting more information ahead of time, like Mr. Rossetti said. Sometimes those exhibits are not attached at the time that we get them. Oftentimes, at least I've experienced that we get them the day of they're turned on, and it could be because they're being tweaked or whatever. But I know I've come to a meeting and I've been asked to vote on an item and the exhibit wasn't there. So I've had to abstain because I can't make a decision to vote yes or no when I don't have the exhibit in front of me. So I really would like to see maybe some more transparency with that. Board decorum is another area, topic that I wrote down. I think of late, our decorum as a board in its entirety to the public has been very embarrassing. I think we're looked upon as a joke with some of the decorum that is going on, some of the bashing that's going on, and really a forum, a board forum, a public forum, that's not the place to be doing bashing of membership. All that does is it's more divisive, and all that does is divide the board even further. And I really see that as an issue because the public is watching us and they're scrutinizing us, and our decorum is important. So I see that as a problem, something maybe I'd like to see us all work on and address and maybe move forward somehow. Communication. One of the things that I've noticed of late is there seems to be a lot of criticism that is being given to, and I'll use the word collectively, some board members, a few board members. What it's based on, I don't know. I don't know why it's warranted. But the bottom line is, if it's meant to intimidate or humiliate, when it's done in a public session, all it does is make for more divisiveness, and the public sees that. We should be helping each other. We should be building each other up. We should be working together as a whole, as a board of the whole. And quite frankly, I really feel we need a lot of improvement in that area, a lot of improvement. Emails that are sent out that are targeted or harassing, they're not helping. They're not helping at all. All they're doing is finger pointing. And I think what's even more upsetting is the fact that it's been put in writing. So, and I'm not going to comment any further on that because it's been recommended to me not to. But anyway, we're a board of the whole. I think we need to work as that And I'm hoping that we can come together. Do I think we can work together? Yes, I do. Some don't feel that way, but I feel we can. So they're the few things that I wrote down over the past couple weeks since our last meeting. I don't know if anybody feels the same or anybody has anything further to ask. But we are here to work for the public. They put us in the seat. But right now, they're scrutinizing us big time. And it is because of what we're putting out there in the decorum that we are showing them at these board meetings. So really, we have no one to blame but ourselves. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I think we can, the whole board can say the same thing as far as we should always be lifting each other up and supporting one another. So as well said, thank you very much for that. Ms. Sanado.
Can we have a discussion about quorum and what the difference?
This is open, as long as you keep everything professional and not go lose your. Yeah,
Turn it up.
As long as you don't, you know.
No, I
I'm
just
not-
want
the
to have a
meeting's not- the
discussion
meeting's not
about the
gonna do that.
quorum in that some people think that some things are not quorum and some people think that other things are not quorum. So I think that having a more defined definition of that would be helpful. I think that, go ahead.
You hear, Ms. Sanado?
Is mic on? Is your portable mic on?
Not sure. Okay.
So I think that that would be helpful. If we, and I'm not saying anything. I'm saying, can we have a discussion about it? Because I think that communication is about back and forth, and it's about, if we want, I think that this concern that we don't discuss things anymore that's definitely changed with Melissa. And I think that if we have to talk about that, then we have to talk about what those things can include and what they can't include. Because what we've been getting is the gotchas, but I don't feel that leads to discussions either. So I'm trying to figure out what would be how can we do this better? It's a sincere question.
Can I piggyback on a little bit to the meetings before Melissa got here sometimes would go until midnight. They would go 11:30, quarter to 12. I think we weren't allowed to go past 12 o'clock, or I think they would have. And I think that Dr. McCooley instituted some changes that streamline things to a certain extent. I think the question and answer document that we used prior to the meeting is designed to flush out some issues and some concerns ahead of time, so that if you come to a meeting and you have a question that you haven't had answered yet, the opportunity to provide Melissa at least with the question. If you want to have a question discussed, it's good to have asked that question to Dr. McCooley in that question and answer document, so that she can be prepared to answer it. It seems like sometimes important questions are waited for until the meeting. And as Kim said, it's a gotcha situation where everybody's caught trying to figure out what the question is really about. Unless it's something that comes up at the last minute, questions should be asked during that question and answer in that document and given either Dr. McCooley or the business administrator Nick Brown an opportunity to research it and answer it and be prepared for it. And I think that's a lot of the work that we used to do in the workshop period does occur during that question and answer document that we ask of Dr. McCooley and of Nick Brown.
Can I add something small? Just know that it's a good idea to have discussions, especially if there's going to be a debate about maybe a topic that might be a hot topic in New Jersey education, or if a new bill is going to be coming out and you want to talk about it. But just as I agree with Mr. Rossetti that you want to prepare for the meeting ahead of time, I think that will go both ways, and I think that's what Betty Ann's saying also. If you want something added to Board of the Whole, absolutely, just email Nick or the president at the time, and we'll put it on the agenda for Board of the Whole discussion. Then, as board members, you can prepare for it, and we can have ourselves prepared as well in case we need to offer information. No one is discouraging that discussion during Board of the Whole, and everyone's always had the opportunity to add to the agenda. It's just not really done often. So I agree with Pat, that's a great time to have those debates as a board so the public can hear it. We would just need the same preparation and respect that the board's asking to put, the agenda together that we would like to prepare also.
Piggybacking on what Mrs. Chambers said, which I totally agree with. I do feel like there should be a little bit more discussion sometimes, not for those gotcha moments, but for sometimes you try to be as objective as possible. Sometimes you look at something a certain way, but when another board member talks about something or asks a question, you have that moment of clarity where you're like, oh, I never looked at it that way before. And then it kind of opens up a new train of thought. So, sometimes those debates, those conversations are healthy and they are, positive. So not looking to be like, hi, got you, but as in, oh, well, that's a new way of looking at it. And that information is helpful in making a decision.
Right, and I thought when you had brought up the one board meeting about the drug policy, it was a great discussion, you had great points, and we could have put that on discussion for board of the whole and perhaps had some more information ready to share data-wise, but it was a healthy discussion and we wound up not
And that's
changing
exactly what I was referencing, because I heard other board members talk about it, and I was like, I
Exactly.
absolutely agree
Right,
with that.
that's a
I didn't
perfect
think about it
example.
that way.
Mhm.
So sometimes those conversations are healthy. I'm not looking at it as trying to, get anybody in that gotcha moment or make some kind of grandstand. It's kind of like, help me understand this better. I defer to a lot of my fellow board members because they've been doing this a lot longer. They have more knowledge. So I listen to them and I'd be, wow, that is an interesting point. We need more of those conversations. So I totally agree with that.
So,
Yeah, I
Can I
would
make
just,
a suggestion too? Sorry, Karen, hang on a sec. So then what if it's something that would not be on the agenda normally? So somebody could say they want to talk about something about, I don't know what, but they could just email you and say, can we
Absolutely.
put this
Anyone
on?
can put
So
anything
any
on.
random
At board,
thing.
right, board of the whole, any board member can put something on there for discussion.
Okay, thanks.
And I think Karen, you can say something.
yeah, I was gonna say that would, I guess, just come under the workshop session of the agenda, right? The board workshop, new versus old business. But no, I was just going to piggyback on Pat and what Tom was saying about the discussion. The Q&A document does help, I think, give some insight, but I really do miss the discussion. And I think it's just fair to say the board members, some have background in education, some have background in business, some have background in, small business. I think that discussion is important because we all bring a different perspective. And I truly believe that working through some of those differences and those different perspectives is what helps bring everyone right to really what the best solution is. And I do think that drug policy discussion was a healthy one and was a good one, but we don't have much of that anymore. And I can appreciate that it's a balance, right? I don't think anyone wants these board meetings to go to midnight, but there has to be a better balance between welcoming that discussion. And I think part of that for me is getting the information in advance. So we could work on that. And then have more board discussion. I think that would help to foster more of a working relationship amongst the board members and for all of us with the administration. And that would be a positive outcome.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, Karen, that you're correct. The Q&A is really for clarification on agenda things.
Yeah.
And that's what that is. And I do the overview video to kind of clarify things. But if there's anything on the agenda that as a board member you think should be discussed, throw it right on board workshop when we do our board of the whole, and then it could be discussed further. And I don't know why anyone would feel discouraged for that. We do welcome the dialogue.
I don't see it as adding something new. It's just like your videos are excellent. I mean, it answers a lot of my questions. But sometimes, like, I think I understand, okay, that's what they're talking about. And then sometimes it gets here, and then another board member will talk about it, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know that aspect of it. So
Sure.
they're revelation. So that's why I was talking about the importance of the conversation. So you think you know all of it, and then you hear a little bit more, and you learn a little bit. That's all.
maybe moving over from what I'm hearing, it's like a consensus, or becoming a consensus, that maybe the board will have that discussion on how we can get more information and have a discussion so everyone can feel part of it, part of the agenda. So that's something I think the board is going to need to address, because obviously that seems like that's anticipation that's not being met. So, Kim, do you have anything else to say?
Not at this moment, no. Thanks.
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yeah, one of the things that the best schools have in common is a trust and a bond between the superintendent and the board. And I think sometimes as a board, and I will include myself in this, that sometimes the roles of the superintendent and the board become blurred a little bit. And there really is a clear distinction between what the superintendent does and what board members do. I remember last summer, we had Will Adonio come in to do a little workshop on just that subject. Not everyone was able to attend. But Melissa, I hate to put you on the spot. Is that something that we want to discuss tonight and clarify a little bit of how you're here to run the district and we're here to make sure it's run well?
So, yes, I think that maybe initially when I came, that was an issue where I think some of the board members, wanted information or wanted input, wanted to micromanage things that were the daily operations. Unfortunately, I think it may have gone in the opposite direction in some respect now, where I don't hear from some board members at all. Even when I email, questions or clarification, I don't get responses. I have no problem answering questions to the best that I can. If something is confidential or personnel, oftentimes I can't talk about it until it comes to our executive session and so forth. But I think that it would be helpful if when we have trainings like that, everyone does attend so we can ask questions and really be on the same page. I know some of the board members at Pinelands have been here, for quite some time and they've been through those trainings. But perhaps the expectations of the former superintendents or the manner in which they handle things might have been a little different. I'm very by the book. I'm a rule follower, and if this is my job and this is the role of the board, it's more effective to follow that protocol.
Plus, it's a different board, right? So each board has its own personality, and so you've got to come to those meetings because you have to be involved. And if they're not writing to you, it's very interesting.
I know that Dr. McCooley's always had an open door policy, especially with the board. I get the agenda when everyone else gets the agenda. And I do look at the bullet, I look at the hyperlinks and I look at the attachments. Again, it's my faith in the administration to run the district. But I also agree with a few of the board members that want more discussion. I get that. I totally get this. So we'll be able to work on that. I don't think 4-hour, 5-hour, workshop work meetings is doable, but maybe we can come to some understanding. So everyone's need as a board member is being met.
No, I just think it's important because I think that's where we as a collective board sometimes get into trouble when board members work outside the parameters of what board members are supposed to do. And I don't think that's where we want to go. And I think it's important to work towards that trust and that bond with the superintendent so we can move beyond some of these things and start talking about student achievement and start talking about what we can do as a district to provide the best schools that we can for the children in our districts, which is why I think we're here.
Well,
Can I interject? May I interject?
right now it's open. You can discuss.
Okay, great, thanks. This is Pat. I think what's important is that as a Board of Education, and at least through all the trainings I've been to, we're the checks and balances. And because we ask a question or because we ask for clarification, doesn't necessarily mean we're opposed to something. What it means is that we're asking for the information to make an informed decision in our vote. And I think that's important. I have said this to Dr. McCooley and also to our former Amy attorney, that I'm a question asker. I'm not going to lie. I'm usually the one that's posting questions on that Q&A and maybe a few others. There's been times I've been the only one that's asked and put an inquiry on there. And it's not because that I'm against something or I'm not supporting something. It's because I need the information to make that informed vote and to be the checks and balances. And that is our job. And that's all the training that I've been to. And they've all said that. And I just really think or feel that having more discussion on some of the issues, maybe instead of putting it out on the Q&A or further discussion, would help us come to a better decision. And I think it would help with a better working relationship as a group. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to touch on Mr. Williams. You there?
Is he on mute?
I'm here.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Mr. Williams.
Well, I concur with the statements that have been made tonight. As some of you know, I am kind of handicapped with what questions I can ask at this time due to some other things going on. Is Mr. Donio on this evening?
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
I'm here.
Oh, he's here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Greetings from Hamilton. We got apparently a lot more snow than
Yeah.
we got closer to the shore, so I'm kind of snowed in. But good evening, everyone.
Good evening. How are you? My question to you, sir, is with some things that are going on that you are aware of. I'm kind of handicapped in what I can say and not say at this time, correct?
Well, let me just. I don't really want to get into the specifics of some of the things because I think that would be would be unwise. Let's put it that way, and also maybe unproductive. I do think you can speak absolutely with regards to your opinions as to the operations of the board as a whole and what have you. And I'm very encouraged by the discussion that I've heard so far among the board. So I would suggest that if it relates to that without mentioning any type of specific type of situation.
Yeah. Well, I would go back to when you, sir, represented your firm. Well, I'd be wrong, 10 years ago for the RFP. You stated you and your firm work for the Board of Education. When things are coming addressed to the board, aren't they, as the administration, responsible to ensure that it is passed on to us?
Well, you're going to get the lawyer's response. It depends, right? And I don't mean to be glib when I say that. The answer is, and maybe just to comment on a couple of things that have been talked about. The general rule is you don't run the schools, you ensure they're well run.
Yeah.
That is the number one rule, really.
Yeah.
To follow up on Ms. Chambers' comments, and I was very encouraged to hear that. That's the number one piece of advice I give all new board members is ask questions. That is your job, to ask questions. That you're the representatives of the communities that you serve, and absolutely you should be asking questions. Now, of course, the questions should first be asked though of the administration, because under the Ethics Act and the Code of Ethics, it's I will confine my power to setting policy, and I will not act on anything except as a board meeting, a duly convened board meeting as a board, and will not take any action without having first asked for an administrative response. So yes, things that come to the board that are addressed to the board should be directed to the board, absolutely. However, you have to give the administration I would believe, and I suggest, and it is my opinion, you have to give the administration the opportunity to really take a look at something first before the board as a whole starts either discussing or acting. Because a lot of times your discussion or action, your discussion itself can be considered action. And your discussion itself can have ramifications for the board that the board needs to make sure it hasn't taken steps. But like I said, you will never hear me say, I don't believe I have ever said, that you shouldn't ask questions. Absolutely, you should ask questions, and you should and have the right to expect answers to those questions.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have at this time because I have to obviously be careful. Thank you.
You have no issues with the board? Mr. Williams?
Excuse me?
You have no issues with the board or no anticipations you'd like to have addressed? Nothing at all?
Everything that is being discussed this evening is right on target.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Yep.
Mr. Palladino.
Evening, everyone. I guess the only issue I have, and I'm stuck on it a little bit, is information that we get that we are not supposed to give to the public due to whatever reasons they're discussed in executive. And on multiple occasions, I've had numerous people come up to me and question me about things that occurred in the executive meeting. Shocked, yes. I was given names to whom leaked the information, kept it to myself. I think it's a huge issue. I think when information is leaked with the opinion of the person who leaked it, which kind of skews the information that we have. I think it hurts the board incredibly. As Ms. Chambers said, the decorum of the board is awful, and I agree with her completely. And I think partially it's because of the information that's leaked and skewed. It's with an opinion, not factual. I've been on here, this is my fourth year, and it's, I'm shocked. I'm not finger pointing. I just really think as adults, we should act like that and try, things in executive, it's for a reason, and keep it that way. Other than that, maybe with the agenda that Mr. Rossetti pointed out, is there any way that we could get the questions that we ask? I know some of it is executive, but maybe put that on the website or something, so at least the parents or the community could see that we're not just sitting here, that we're asking questions and we're getting answers, and it's more transparent. That might help a little bit.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I would have to just wait till after the meeting and then redact anything that may have been executive discussion.
Okay.
But yeah, we can absolutely do that. Our new website is going to be launched soon. I think that the public will appreciate it because everyone, including the board, are more accessible through it. It's, everything will be at the public's fingertips. So we can definitely add a section where we can hyperlink all of those notes.
Great. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Is there anybody else, any board member that would like to add anything else? Mr. Bartlett, would you like to?
Well, yeah, obviously my input is mainly coming from the community because this is the first board agenda that I've received in my email. And I didn't really have any questions about it because it's fairly simple. But I do think that, the input from the community is, I would certainly agree with what a lot has been said tonight, right? Board relations, board of the whole, in terms of the decorum and what I've seen from sitting in the gallery, so to speak, in the past 6 to 8 months. And I do believe that, it seems like for whatever reason, personal agendas have leaked into what is a board that is running a school district, which is the business of the school. And so I just think going forward that we should be about the business of the school, and that is for the students. So, it's a multiple thing, right? The good of the students, the good of the teachers, the good of the administration, the good of the community. And yes, I agree, Mrs. McVeigh, that's why we're here, for the kids and for academic achievement. Not just academic achievement, but hey, we want to produce good kids, right? And good workers for our community and, good citizens as well. So that's kind of my input coming in, and yes, I don't have a lot to speak to the last 10 years, 20 years. But coming in and seeing what I've seen from sitting outside and now having a seat on this board, I certainly, want to see. There can be disagreement from what I understand on a board up until the vote. And then once the vote comes down, we're all unified by the vote, and that's the stance of the board. And that's been my experience in any number of boards that I've been a part of. And I would assume it is the same for a school board. Please correct me if I am wrong.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. That's a great point. It's a democracy and the majority rules. And when there is a majority of the board that votes on something, that's the way it should be. We should be able to agree to disagree on things, but the majority rules, things after they're voted on should not be litigated then in the court of public opinion for months there so after. So I couldn't agree with you more. That's part of how we struggle as a board is, we don't put things behind us and move on to the next thing. We tend to relitigate things if we don't agree with the opinion. And that's democracy. And I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Bartlett.
Oh, very, very well said. It's the same thing. I see things get posted in parent group pages, and I think everything has their place. And I don't get involved with that, but I do see it. And, they're parents and they're taxpayers. So I am cognizant of what they say because they're talking about Pinelands and their voices should be heard too. So it's important. I think that, most likely we're probably going to be moving more towards a little bit more openness with all board members to have more discussion. So we'll get there as we move forward, what works for our board. So with that, I'm going to move on. And we're going to move on to residents forum, general topics. Board policy 0167 encourages community participation in every meeting. However, the board requests that the public respect the reasonable time limit when commenting on any topic. Anyone online? No? Just give it I have to hear this. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Brown. All right, moving on. Now we're going to reach to a board forum. The floor is now open for board forum. Would anyone like to speak again before we end the meeting?
I just wanted to say I heard a lot of good stuff this evening, and thank you for putting this together. I think this was very well needed. I think everybody needed to come together at the table and express their feelings and emotions. We could all work together and move forward. And I don't want to sound biased as a teacher, but we're here for education. So let's just try to focus on that and move forward with that.
I agree. All right, well, okay. So may I please have a motion for adjournment?
I was going to actually say something.
Right?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I just again wanted to express my, sympathy to Melissa and to, the community about the girls. Just so work. I'm hoping that everything's going to be fine. Also, to express congratulations to the drama students for winning. We haven't met since then, so I want to say it did such a great job. But how many years? 16 years in a row.
That's it. Okay, now we can be hereby resolved the Pinelands Regional Board of Education to adjourn. Have a motion.
Motion.
Second. All ayes?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is now concluded.
Good night.
Thanks.